With America's Mayor Live, and we're live from Palm Beach. We're indoors tonight. Close call. Maybe too warm out there. Not sure. We'll try to be out there tomorrow. I like being out there. It's a little different than, when we get back to the city and we're locked in what now has become juvenile crime capital. It's astounding the number of juvenile crimes in the last week or so. Mayor Adams is so concerned about it. He went to Miami and Rome well, I don't know exactly to know what he was doing. Sounds more constructive, actually, than the usual nightclubbing that he does here in New York. But in any event, he also left behind the 100,000 or so illegal aliens that he encouraged to come to New York City with extra pay, extra insurance, extra health care, extra education, and much nicer surroundings. There's a group now that's really upset that they're not getting the meals they want, and they're complaining about it. And of course, that whole thing with giving them a credit card was because they were not happy with the meals that were being served by a lot of Adams' contributors. Oh, you say, well, how did Adams have contributors serving meals to migrants? Because they got all the contracts. Yeah, the multi-million-dollar contracts. I remember when I did contracts, there used to be something called bidding, and you had to pick the lowest bid unless there was a qualitative difference that you could actually, foolishly, I guess, took it seriously. That's why I had an honest city. I even denied Trump bids, the biggest one, and that was for the Columbus Circle, for what is now, well, I don't even know what they call it now. CNN was there. I guess it was good that I didn't have to pick Trump to build the CNN building. Who knows what would have been claimed for poor poor President Trump. Well, today, a man who was officially labeled too unbelievable to use as a witness by the premier prosecutor's office in the country, the United States Attorney's Office of the Southern District of New York, was put on the stand by the worst prosecutor in the country. Well, not really by the worst prosecutor. He just sits there and observes while the guy that Biden sent there to try the case tries the case, because among other things, we elected or you elected, I didn't vote for him, you all elected a guy as DA who not only lets criminals go free left and right, he doesn't know how to try a case. Like a sissy baby, he sits there and has to have somebody else come in and try the case for him. And of course, Biden, who's directing all of these, sent his number 3 person from the Justice Department to try the case. And they want to claim that the White House is not directing these as political prosecutions. I cannot for the life of me believe how many liars we're surrounded. I'm surrounded by lies all day. I don't know how I keep my head straight. I don't know. But this guy, I will tell you, there's only one person that is clearly a worse pathological liar than this guy, where I think it actually is at the level of mental illness, and that's Joe Biden. Joe Biden, I actually think at this point cannot tell the truth. With the recent going over the bridge that didn't exist, giving out medals to people that were dead for seven years, thinking his father and his uncle were alive for the medal ceremony in the White House when they were dead, when he was in the White House. He had a little one yesterday. He called Kim Jong-un the president of South Korea. I guess actually, let's face it, anybody could do that. Brightest guy in the world, brightest woman in the world could do that one. That isn't the real problem with him, is that he never gets anything right. And then he tells monstrous lies, like about his uncle being eaten by New Guinea cannibals. They still offer Biden leftovers in New Guinea. That's what I'm told. But, it's like a hoax, which is what he is. So I don't want to spend too much of the show on this because it's kind of boring, but I do feel compelled to say how personally disappointed I am that John Catsimatidis is turning into being a pathetic dissembler. And I'm saying that because I don't want to use the other word. He wrote a letter to his staff. Well, first of all, there should be a warning in front of ABC that carries the prohibition. Now, he keeps changing the prohibition because he's essentially not telling the truth at all. And there's something being hidden here. I don't know what it is, because until 2 days before I got fired, he was sponsoring my birthday party. He's not now. Nor would I want him to. Actually, I didn't want him to back then, but that's a different reason. So now he's talking about, it's really getting Biden-like, actually. He's saying things like, it really isn't about talking about the election. It's about talking about the machines. It's only if you accuse somebody of fraud. I'm sorry, John, but you put it in writing. And when you put something in writing, and you're the CEO, they consider this to be policy. And this thing in writing has the threat of removal if you don't follow it. And it's pretty simple to figure out what it says. And it's pretty simple to see that you're lying right now. And a lot of people won't see it because you got a lot of money and you throw it around. But man, it doesn't affect me. In fact, it probably affects me the other way. I really don't like people who do that. And I didn't realize you did it this way. I'm really, really very disappointed in you, which I'm sure doesn't matter because you wouldn't be doing it if it mattered. The letter is simple. It's got the policy is easy to see. And it shocked me when I saw it because I would never work for anyone that had a policy like this, which is why when you say I was constantly told about it, you're just lying and lying and lying and lying. It also is strange that I did it for 5 years. Well, actually 3.5 years on this particular issue. For 3.5 years. And you just kept letting me do it? All I did is talk about the election. Here's what it says. This letter serves to remind you that you are prohibited from engaging in conversations relating to the 2020 presidential election on your programs broadcast on WABC radio and otherwise in your capacity as an agent of the station. Well, and now you go in this phony letter that you wrote, Mayor Giuliani has admitted repeatedly over the past few days that he agreed not to speak about Dominion. However, he was also warned numerous times, particularly in the past few months, to refrain from any allegations of electronic voting manipulation surrounding the 2020 elections. Well, the second part of that is completely 100% false. The first part of it is that it is true. Now, when I came back to the station, after I was the president's counsel, they had a whole group of things that they didn't want me to talk about. I crossed those out with Dr. Maria. We both did the documents. And I agreed at that time to remain, to not comment on Dominion, in large part because I was in litigation with Dominion, and so was he. And because he said he wanted to work things out privately with Poulos, who was the CEO of Dominion. That was quite some time ago. And over the period of time, I've pretty much not commented on Dominion. I would say that a couple of times I did. basically by accident. No big deal. I commented on the election. We calculate somewhere around 200 times. Also, this says I'm prohibited from commenting on the $145 million judgment against me, largely because of their interpretation of my case, which really is Biden's lawyers' interpretation of my case. Now, by Biden's lawyers, I mean the women's lawyers, but Biden people are paying for that case. Those women who are represented by a Wall Street law firm, millions of dollars in fees. It's being paid by the people who are trying to destroy everyone around Trump, including me. And the lawyer himself is a friend of Hunter Biden's. The language in the second part of his letter to me looks like it was written by that guy with his false interpretation. But in any event, not talk about the $145 million judgment. I mean, I talked about that. It's not every day since it happened every other day. And I was questioned about that by people that work for you who supposedly live under the same policy. But because you've been caught lying, you're now changing it to commenting on the machines, which I never did, except maybe 2 or 3 times accidentally, until you sent me this damn thing. And when you sent me this, I said, the hell with you. You've just breached the entire agreement. I mean, I don't know why you would think right now I wouldn't comment on all of this. The minute I got this, I said, gosh almighty, John Catsimatidis is a big liar. And whatever deal we have, which is basically oral, is breached. He's trying to set me up to get rid of me. You wouldn't lie like this. How can you possibly have people believe that you had a policy, broadly speaking? Let me see how broad this is. This letter serves to remind you that you are prohibited from engaging in conversations relating to the 2020 presidential election on your programs broadcast on WABC and otherwise in your capacity as an agent of the station. Right now, I'm doing America's Mayor Live. When I was whatever I was for you, was I an agent of the station? Sounds like it. I mean, this sounds like a setup letter to try to frame somebody. Very, very similar to what Biden has been doing to a lot of other lawyers. And it looks to me that the second part of the letter was probably done in cahoots with Biden. So as far as I'm concerned, when I got this letter, our relationship was over. I'm not, whether you fired me or not, I'm not going to work, as I made clear to you in the text. I'm not going to work for somebody who tries to impose a policy like this on me. This policy is unconstitutional. It's illegal. When I say it's unconstitutional, it is true that the Constitution only applies to government action. So what I really should say, it's against the spirit of the Constitution. It certainly is immoral and completely unprofessional for someone who owns a radio, television station, or a newspaper to impose a gag order on people about an issue that is probably the most important in the presidential election and one that's still very much alive. For example, today and yesterday on my own shows, free of your dictatorship, I was able to freely comment on what your people aren't allowed to comment on by the terms of this. I commented on the report in Atlanta and in Georgia that 3,000 additional votes have been found that were at least double counted, possibly more. That completely is consistent with what I testified to, what I said, my position with the Bar Association, and the tapes that I have that have been altered by either the Secretary of State's office in Georgia or by the Bar Association. That's not your responsibility, but that just happens to be a fact. So today I could tell people that these 3,000 votes were found consistent with double, quadruple counting. And I have tapes of people quadruple counting. People are entitled to know that. People are entitled to know that so that maybe they're spurred, their legislature is spurred to take action to prevent it from 2024. The second thing, and even more disastrous, is that something like 370,000 votes are missing. And of course, in Georgia, it doesn't matter. But maybe it matters to Americans if they find out about it. Now, if they listen to WABC, because of your policy, John, they don't find out about it. Did you report today that there was did you report since it's happened that there was a report in Georgia that 370,000 votes are missing? Now, the Georgia authorities who are responsible for the votes being missing and the double counting of the votes say it doesn't affect the election. How do you know it doesn't affect the election? Where did the votes come from? What part of the state? How much detail do you have about it? It says, well, they were counted in some, but obviously they weren't counted in others. Or were they counted and they're missing after they're counted? We don't know any of that. But since you have censored it and covered it up, we can't have a free exercise of investigatory journalism here because they're not allowed to cover it on your station. Why the hell would you do that, John? Why would you ever have a policy, which you say you're reminding me of, which suggests this was in advance, and maybe you had it with other people. You didn't have it with me. But if you did, you really should get the hell out of the journalism business. If you really had a policy prohibiting your people from engaging in conversations relating to the 2020 presidential election on your programs broadcast on WABC, then you should get the hell out of this business. Because whether this is technically unconstitutional or just completely un-American, it's certainly inconsistent with anybody that should have responsibility for the public's right to know, because you are crushing the public's right to know. So just in case, Ted, can we show people the language? I mean, because these squirmy worms keep changing the.
You can bring up the letter.
Yeah, I mean, you're the first one that noticed today how they changed the language, right? Where they said in today's letter that I should refrain from any allegations of electronic voting manipulation. Is there anything in here about electronic voting manipulation?
Let's zoom in here.
Nope. I mean, you put the two letters together, written by the same guy, just like Cohen. You put the two letters together, one's lying. In one, he says he notified me of an electronic voting manipulation surrounding the 2020 election. Here's the letter. Doesn't say a damn thing about that. This is what happens when you get caught lying. You get caught in a web. But man, I was great at doing this. John, if I could get you on a witness stand, we could settle this. It can't be both. In fact, the real truth is it's neither. And you know that. If you had a policy against this, you're going to let me do it 200 times? Gosh, oh my, that's worse than Biden and Obama combined. Well, that's enough of that. I'm sure there'll be plenty more of this. And there's something deeper here. He says that I, raised Newsmax for the first time, whatever. I didn't raise Newsmax for the first time. All of a sudden, out of the blue, his henchman, Chad Lopez, accused Dr. Maria Ryan of using Newsmax. And that wasn't true. It wasn't true. She had never been notified of such a thing. And then I was notified of it, about Newsmax. And for the life of me, I can't figure out why you can't mention Newsmax Oh, I couldn't figure out why you can't mention Newsmax on WABC. I mean, jealousy? No one ever gave me a reason. Now I read articles about how John doesn't want to comply with the subpoena, explaining why Newsmax contends he got some kind of a special backroom deal from Dominion and John Poulos, organized through a Greek priest. And John doesn't want to comply with that subpoena or turn over the documents. So look, I'm just telling you what's reported. That's my job. Something stinks here. And it could go even deeper, and possibly without his knowledge of Biden lawyers being involved in coming up with a couple of these ideas, particularly about the $145 million case. Because all of a sudden, today I get served with a subpoena about the $145 million case, and continuing to repeat that that they were involved in all the things I've always said they were involved in, which, by the way, are on tape if you care to look. And it seems to be coming at exactly the same time as this. So I guess what I'm saying is, can I prove, or do I know that the Biden people are involved in this in some way with his lawyers? No. Does it look suspicious that they're saying exactly the same false interpretation? Yes. Does it look suspicious that it's coming at exactly the same time? Even more than yes. And does it look suspicious that this is yet another way to shut up one of Trump's lawyers, many of whom are gagged for this ridiculous reason or that ridiculous reason? To get me gagged would be really very valuable to them. Because remember, I'm the one who first brought out the allegations of crime involving Joe Biden. And I'm the one who put out the hard drive. And then the same group of liars they are either in cahoots with or whose interpretation they're accepting, I'm talking about ABC, turned out to be lying about Russian collusion. In fact, they were with a paid lie. And they were lying about Russian earmarks on the hard drive, which was validated by the FBI a year before I was falsely accused of that. So I'm used to being falsely accused by the President of the United States. I'm not used to being falsely accused by someone who purported to be my friend and to love me. He did tell me in one text that everybody is very afraid. I'm not very afraid. I don't know what you're very afraid of, John, but I am not very afraid. If you are very afraid, maybe you should come clean and tell us what it is. Well, we're going to take a short break, and not because I'm afraid, but because we have to try to help our very loyal customers and clients. And we'll be right back.
That's right. So as you watch this commercial, ladies and gentlemen, keep in mind that everything you do to support our sponsors is also supporting everything we're doing here on America's Mayor Live. And we'll have you know, Mike Lindell, of course, the mayor's been receiving a lot of calls, texts, emails, correspondence from so many people. And of course, one of them has been Mike Lindell.
He'll be on his show tomorrow, right?
Yep.
We're having the biggest sale ever on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save 60% on our Goose Down comforters, the best comforters ever. They go perfectly with our MyPillow bed sheets and duvet covers. Save 25% on our brand new kitchen towels. They're made with the same technology as our famous My Towels. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. Our seasonal flannel sheets are finally in. You save up to 50%, and they sell out fast every year, so order now. They're truly the best flannel sheets you'll ever sleep on. Or save up to 80% on all our clearance items. And this is where it gets even better. For a limited time, your entire order ships absolutely free. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use that promo code to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. And for a limited time, your order ships absolutely free.
I'll just
Hey, and we're back. Welcome back to America's Mayor Live, the fastest hour on the internet.
well, we're back again, and we're off that subject, and we're going to talk about the rally.
Oh, in Wildwood.
The rally in Wildwood, which I mean, I have to go by the people from New Jersey who say this is the biggest ever in New Jersey. I look at the crowd. To me, it's phenomenal. I don't know if I've ever seen a political crowd like this. This must have been taken high in the air because everybody looks like what I'm looking at here. This little thing I'm looking at here. Everybody looks like little ants or something, but it looks like a million ants. And I heard. I mean, I listened to the rally, watched it on television, and I got to tell you, the press. They are such liars and scoundrels who never have any. I mean, part of the news here is that a guy on trial with all these false allegations against him can produce a crowd like this in a Democratic state. I mean, I don't care if you're a Republican, Democrat, liberal, or conservative, for or against Trump. That's news. But much like we're talking about with Castamatidis, you don't get to cover all the news. In the case of ABC, there should be a thing on the door. We do not cover anything about the 2020 election. That's what the policy says. They should put a policy on the door. Prohibited from engaging in conversations related to the 2020 presidential election. Well, this is prohibiting you from showing the crowd while live TV is on. Now, why isn't that newsworthy? Why isn't it? We're trying to assess. We have things like polls all the time, so we're trying to assess who's ahead, who isn't, who has the most enthusiasm. Do you have a picture of this, Ted, of the crowd here? I mean, it's a little hard to see with mine because, as I said, it looks like ants.
Yeah, we've been playing some.
Can I put it up closer like that?
Yes,
Does that help?
That does help. But we also have some video here.
Yeah, I saw the video, but I just thought that picture was remarkable.
If I could get that, is that from the New York Post?
Yeah. It's from the New York Post. It's going wild, and of course, with the beautiful headline writing they do. Right?
Yeah.
These guys are great with these little headlines. Going wild in Wildwood.
I guess that's good.
I don't know the Jersey Shore because I never really spent a lot of time there. As a kid, I spent much more time in Long Island. And so I know Coney Island, Jones Beach, the North Shore, the Hamptons, but these are very popular beaches. But I sure as heck don't remember seeing a beach like that for a political rally. Usually they're like that when you have one of those 95-degree days. People are trying to escape and they used to be like that before we had air conditioning. Now most people on 95-degree days stay home in the air conditioning. Which is probably not the best idea. Going there is probably the best idea. But a heck of a performance, too. It was one of his better. I mean, come on, let's face it. Whether you like him or you don't like him, he's become quite a performer. I mean, he can hold your attention. And you know what amazes me when he does? Both Ted and I yell out yes when he does this, but even though we're watching on television, he says, "Do you want me to tell the snake story?" And we're like, "You want the short version or the long version?" The version. And then we never get bored. I mean, even though we know the Don ending, which is that the snake, of course, is Biden. And he kills the poor old lady.
But he's really, and every time he tells a story, sometimes you can tell when he's really getting into it, or he's kind of, he'll really get into it when, the snake's lines, shut up, he tells them, and he'll really get into it. So depending on the day or the environment.
What did you think of the one on did you watch the one on Saturday?
Full, I mean, that was he was energized.
Yeah.
He was in full
I
form.
it was sort of a Broadway kind of one.
Yeah, I like that.
It wasn't as angry as some of them.
Yep.
Where he can put in that. Yeah. But that's better in an indoor arena.
But we had much.
This one had a little more humor to it.
Let's play a little clip here. Hopefully, it's a funny clip where we had.
Is this a snake clip?
I don't think so, but we had
One night we'll play
colleagues,
it.
Mike and Rob
sure,
put some clips together.
I tell you what.
No
Why
label.
don't you send in a couple of things now? Do you want us at some point to play the snake story? Yes or no? You want the long version or the short version? Now I have to tell you the truth. I've never heard the short version. I don't know if there is a short version.
That's a good.
I mean,
He loves hearing people say long.
I think we should. I think just for the hell of hearing the damn thing, we should all organize and ask him to do the short version.
We're gonna do that for upcoming. We'll find a rally that we.
Yeah, I'm going to
we'll
ask him
get-
if he would please do the short version
just so we can hear it.
because everybody will say long version, but just for the sake of history, we should hear the short version.
So we'll try to get everyone in on it ahead of time. So
I
it's the spur of the moment.
Yeah,
But when he said
but I
it
do-
short,
I-
you'll have to.
But is there a short version? He might have gotten rid of it by now because he's so assured that they're going to say long
Well,
version.
He may have, in which case he'd have to wing it and cut off a couple lines
Oh, he could do that.
of the
in a
long
second.
way. Hey, oh, he do it.
I just-
like you. You're like you.
We just got to make sure it has the same ending.
Yes, the ending can't be different. The moral of the story has to
I
remain.
think a little of the middle. I'm trying to figure out now. I've never heard the short version, to tell you the truth, and I pretty much can't say I've watched every single one. Pretty close to it, though,
I
right?
would say pretty close.
Probably between the two of us, because you probably watched some that I. Have you ever heard the short version?
Never. And I've watched. By the way, I've been watching his speeches like you since
I'm
he
gonna
was announced.
I'm going to try to find out for you by tomorrow night. Is he back here in Florida?
He was here yesterday, wasn't he?
Oh,
But he had to go back to New York. Oh God,
Wednesday's coming. The day
he had to
off.
go
Remember
back. The one day off,
the big
middle of
day
the week,
off.
the convenient, middle of the week day off.
To screw up the campaign.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason for that middle of the week day off is so that he doesn't get a 3-day weekend to campaign. But I think actually he's winning by so damn much. And in case this trial is over, convicted, acquitted, hung jury, whatever, maybe he should ask to continually remain on trial. Because he's doing a pretty good job of campaigning. Or maybe when they're over, he could build his own little courtroom and walk out every day and give a press conference. That environment seems to work well. He did a really good one today. What do you have? You have anything from today?
Yep. Let's play a clip from the.
Too bad this isn't on television, because all you have to do is look. I can't believe the jury is going to believe Michael Cohen talks like a guy that you don't believe. Can we get a little tape on him? I don't care what he's talking about.
Yeah.
If he tells you, my name is Michael Cohen and I live in whatever the hell he lives in, you'd say, no, you're not. And no, you're not.
To eradicate Hamas terrorists in Gaza. No, it was shocking to hear it. Even while there are still American hostages being held by Hamas, and they're saying, oh, October 7th never happened. They say that. And Biden has fallen for it. Crooked Joe's action is one of the worst betrayals of an American ally in the history of our country. I support Israel's right to win its war on terror. Is that okay? I don't know. I don't know if that's good or bad politically. I don't care. You got to do what's right. It was a terrible attack. Our shipping weapons.
Well, that was just a little taste. We wanted to give you a little taste from the rally.
Yeah, I'm looking at another picture. This is actually a better picture. I'm going to show it to you of the rally. I think it's a better picture.
Yeah.
It's a little brighter, a little clearer.
There we go. I'm gonna zoom in here. Yeah.
Look at that.
Wow. Look at that. Look at that crowd.
Now, he was getting crowds like this in 2020, which is why I was suspicious from the very beginning. And I'm going to tell you when I knew the election was fixed. And you can go back to my podcast and see it. On the day after the election, when I found out that, first of all, the voting that was supposed to go on all night was stopped. And every place it was stopped, which was what, 5, he was ahead. In some cases by enough to call the election for him. I said, there's something weird here. I don't know if I even heard the story, which turns out, I think, to be false, that in Atlanta there was a water main break. I don't know if I even heard that story. I just heard, and the one I was mostly focused on was Pennsylvania, because I was actually even surprised that he was ahead by 800,000, because that's what threw off their plans. I mean, I think they had the thing rigged enough, so they felt they were going to, with the keep down the election day vote. But the real art of this, as I think most people will tell you, was rigging the massive, unprecedented, pandemic-produced vote that took place by mail. And when I heard that they stopped the counting of it at a time where Trump had a lead, and only there. And then the next day, got my first call from Pam Bondi that they weren't allowing Republicans to do the usual job of inspecting the absentee ballots. Now, I don't even know how bad it was at that point. They weren't allowing them within a football field of those to see the paper. And then I found out that the same thing was true in Detroit. And then whoever I talked to in Detroit said something about they got us in here like cows. And then I called back Philadelphia and I said, what is that? Oh, yeah, they put up barriers and all the Republicans are behind the barriers. And they're not allowed to get anywhere near the ballot so that they can see if there's a signature or not and compare it, which is the whole purpose of being there as an inspector, to compare the signatures. I used to do that once a long time ago when I said, back when I think I did it for Abraham Lincoln. But then it all happened in about a 3-hour period. Then I get a similar complaint from, it was first Philadelphia. Then it was Detroit. I think Atlanta was third, I think. Right in the middle of it, I got a call from Pittsburgh saying that in Pittsburgh, they were holding people back. But in Pittsburgh, they were getting massive numbers of people that were showing up voting who were told they had already voted. And I said, are you keeping account of that? I was told, yes. Or had you kept account of it? Yes. And I got that count pretty quickly from an extraordinarily responsible person, 17,000. Then I found out about, I don't remember the order, but they cut things off in Atlanta. They cut things off in Detroit. And a big truck came in which the Bar Association wants to disbar me because I said it was I think I said it was a sanitation truck, maybe. And in fact, it's just a big truck. And that's why I shouldn't be a lawyer anymore. But it was a big truck, and there were 100,000 ballots, and people testified that they were almost all for Biden. And people had been thrown out, so nobody was there when that happened, similar to what happened in Atlanta, where the people were thrown out and they counted ballots. And similar to what happened in Philadelphia, similar to what happened in Pittsburgh, similar to what happened in Milwaukee. Yep, in Milwaukee. And Arizona was sort of a little off the charts because Arizona only had a few votes in. The strange part about, although they stopped, the strange part about Arizona was that there was only like 5% of the vote in when it was called by Fox for Biden. And then it turned out to be about a 1-point election, a 10,000 vote election. Looked like a crooked call. Some of the others where Trump was ahead would have been more responsible calls than what they did with. So when I put all that together, I said to myself, I remember even saying it in the car when I was getting all the information. What happened on election morning or the day after when they counting votes? The Democrats said, I think we're going to go buy big pens. And we're going to put them up like you do when you're herding cattle. And we're going to put all the Republicans behind the pens. And we're not going to let them see the vote. And we're going to do that in Philadelphia. We're going to do it in Pittsburgh. We're going to do it in Detroit. We're going to do it in Milwaukee. We're going to do it in Atlanta, Georgia. All places where it's a democratic dictatorship, a one-party place. But not any place else. And then what are the odds that every one of those ends up, when do they finish counting? When Biden gets ahead. So I said to myself, if this isn't a conspiracy, I will eat my hat. And I've since then gotten each day more and more evidence. And the reason I couldn't possibly comply with that ridiculously overbroad, enormously prejudicial order. I mean, among other things, that is that you cannot have conversations about the 2020 election. That's a major suck up to Biden and a major blow to Trump. How the hell is Trump going to stop 2024 from these things happening if you can't talk about and show the proof that it happened in 2020? What the hell do you think motivates people, first of all, to go out and help us? And number two, maybe to frighten them that we're up to their scheme. But if you can show that you can shut us up on something quite legitimate, there's nothing at all illegitimate about talking about what happened in the election. And except for the fact that I agreed with him on Dominion because I'm in the lawsuit with Dominion, there's nothing wrong about talking about electronic fraud either. And once you breach the agreement, hey, all bets are off, pal. You want to screw around like that? Once you breach breach a contract, if it is a contract, it's all over. And this is a policy. And a policy I don't get informed of. But exactly what the hell is wrong with saying that machines were fixed? If somebody else can come along and say machines weren't fixed, then I'm going to show you. Isn't that what happens? Gee, isn't that what wasn't it Socrates who said that's how, and Plato then wrote it in one of his, Plato was really the author of all of what Socrates did. And in his dialogues, uses Socrates as his main character. So isn't that the marketplace of ideas? There's really nothing, there's nothing too false or too horrible that you can say, unless it's going to cause physical damage right away, because it can be refuted by somebody else. What's wrong is when you shut people up, because then you got a motive when you're doing that. When you shut people up, you're trying to weigh the scale on one side or the other. And here, to shut people up on what happened in 2020 election is to weigh the scales in favor of Joe Biden. And you got to be a fool not to figure that out. I am not a fool. And I'm not taking a penny from anybody that wants to do that. I think, beyond everything else, I think it's too important to our republic that we have a free and fair election and that we can openly talk about it and that we're not afraid not to, or that we're not bribed because, gosh, like several people have said to me, go easy on your colleagues. They have families to support. Well, that's true. I agree with that. So I'm not going to talk about any of them, except the guy who's got more money than anyone and throws it around for the purpose of, of doing things that are in some cases wrong. And maybe other cases neutral, but they're not happening because of John. They happen because he's throwing his money around. I used to think he was a man of character, But when I look at a letter like today's, this thing here, that this was about, I was told to refrain from any allegations of electronic voting manipulation, when in fact, what I was told was to refrain from any conversations about the election, at which I was not told at all. I mean, it's getting a little, this is not the kind of people that, having had a background of being a law clerk, an assistant United States attorney, the third ranking official in the Justice Department, the United States attorney, probably who's prosecuted more criminals than anyone of significance, and then a mayor who turned around a city with a lot of crooks in it. I'm not used to dealing with people that do this, and I'm not patient about it. I'm sorry. So, as I said, Fulton County, 3,000 ballots scanned twice during the 2020 presidential election, ruling by the SEB, and 300 and something ballots missing. Wow, that's a lot of ballots missing. Now, do they have an excuse for it? Yes. Does the excuse, should the excuse be accepted and then close everything? Of course not. They lie about everything. This, for example, the thing it doesn't tell us is where the ballots that are missing came from. Where were they? What part of the state? This is why censoring, discussing the 2020 election is so damaging, because you can't follow up on what appears to be very, very damaging information about a fraudulent election that has been proven fraudulent 15 times over. Ted, you know, this idea that I wasn't allowed to talk about the election, right?
Right.
Didn't, you were there. Would you, there were about 500 days conceivably I could have talked about, or 400, I don't remember. Would you say it was about half the time that I would mention in one way or another the 2020 election?
No,
Well,
I'd say more like 3/4, 3/4 of the time.
now let's
In one way or another, it came up.
All you need is one to prove they're a bunch of damn liars. Didn't I have? I have to warn you, John. My memory is flawless. Which is why I was such a good cross-examiner. Didn't I have Christina Bobb on? And didn't we discuss all of the allegations of fraud in Arizona, which she was investigating, and then eventually wrote a book about that and other things?
Yeah, and a matter of fact,
I mean, they may hide or suppress or get rid of all of these tapes. I have no, but I think I got a picture of her in the studio.
yeah, we're gonna bring that up here.
And when she was there, that's what she was doing. So there couldn't have been, I just don't think we were discussing the Arizona Diamondbacks.
No.
And by the way, Christina worked for me on the team of lawyers that investigated election fraud in 2020. Or didn't I cover on WABC 2,000 Mules, Ted?
Yeah,
What's 2,000 Mules about?
yeah, I think it's about something about the election, right?
About election fraud, yeah.
So these pictures, I gotta get the date. So we're bringing this up right now.
Okay, well, take your time.
Yeah.
I mean, now that I'm not restrained by anything, even fictitious, why don't you go get the movie Kill Chain and watch it? It was done 2 years before the election, and it gives you an idea of how you can manipulate voting machines in a similar way to the testimony that we all presented to the legislatures. And you make your own determination about that. Of course, you wouldn't be allowed to talk about on WABC, and they wouldn't be able to tell you to go look at Kill Chain, even to make up your own mind about it. Why don't you get the movie? But certainly get it now as we're preparing for 2024, because it goes even beyond that into the various forms of election fraud that the people on WABC are not allowed to talk to you about. But get the movie Kill Chain and see how phony all of this really is. Well, once again, get the 2,000 Mules and take a look at the technology that was used and the fact that no credible report of any kind has been done to refute it. And by the way, that technology that they're talking about, which it's called, I think, the ping technology, it's used very, very, very frequently, I guess, or certainly not infrequently, to catch criminals. What it basically does is, you have a cell phone with you, Ted?
Yeah.
I got a cell phone with me. Right now, or within the next 3-4 years, if you want to pay for it, you can go to a service, and you can if you have my identifying information and his.
That's right.
You can say, trace where Giuliani was on May 13th. Where was he between 8 and 9? And it'll show Giuliani here. And then through extraneous evidence, you'll be able to show, because there are pictures of me here, what I'm doing here. And you can hear Ted.
Yep.
And if Ted would turn the microphone on, you'd see it. If Ted would turn the camera around, we could see Ted.
Yeah. Well, you don't want the ratings to plummet, do you?
No,
Yeah, good ratings going, man.
Go way up. All those women will start watching.
Yeah.
And the reality is that's what they did, and they were able to show unbelievable numbers of people going to the Zucker boxes, putting in unbelievable number of votes, and then I don't remember the exact percentage, but about a third to half had functioning cameras, so you can see the way they're stuffing them in like phony ballots, and then doing it regularly on almost like a mail delivery schedule. And then you could calculate in those places what the percentages were for people. And when they did their first run through, they were able to easily show that 3 out of those 5 states, Trump had won. And then when they did their complete survey, he had won all of them. They were able to attribute a vote. That's never been refuted. Now, under the ABC rule, you couldn't be told that. You couldn't be told to go watch that movie. I told you to go watch that movie over and over again. I'm so disgusted. Now, there is a movie that I did want to tell you about that we went to last night, and called Civil War. It is not about our Civil War. It's about a fictitious Civil War in which Texas and California secede and apparently go to war against the United States. The president is a fascist fraud who is overstaying his welcome for a 3rd term. Is this intended to be Trump or Biden? Hard to say. Most of it, very subtly, is left-wing oriented. For example, the place they all meet just happens to be Charlottesville. You don't have a white guy hero in this of any kind. President's a scoundrel. The 4 journalist heroes are one's black, one's Latino, and 2 women. There are an awful lot of sadistic white guys running around. But in fairness, a couple of sadistic black guys too. The problem with the movie is not so much, it was done so carefully so that the right wing didn't boycott the movie, because at a few points it looks like it could have gone off the edge and be a very sort of anti white anti-right-wing movie, but it never did. It just was horribly, terribly boring to the point where I was using my cell phone, because the theater had about 8 people in it, counting the people last. I assume that's pretty much how the movie is doing. The movie is, this is not a political thing, because politically, from the point of view of being right wing or left wing, you can't be that offended. They didn't make it clear, and they put in enough facts on each side. Look, just look, Texas and California.
Yeah.
Right? They're rebelling. But because they make it so vanilla, it has no reality to it. It's like, what are they rebelling over? We don't know. Why are they all killing each other? We don't really know.
Really?
You don't know what they're rebelling over.
Yeah, that's a tough movie to watch.
The president's a tyrant, but we don't know exactly why he's a tyrant. As far as looks, he doesn't look like either one. He doesn't really, I mean, there's no attempt to make him look like Biden, make him look like Trump or any recent president. But he is somehow either going for or holding a third term, which I guess how he did that, I don't know. I guess he just controlled the courts or whatever. And then basically it's, if the movie is an hour and something long, 45 minutes of it is just pure machine gun fire. If you like machine gun, I mean, I kind of like classical music, not machine gun fire. So if they had like background music, I could have worked with that. But I did a good job of cleaning up a lot of my messages, and watched a little of a baseball game. I sat in a corner. It was a very big theater. I sat in the front, and it was one of those big theaters, and you couldn't kind of see me. So nobody complained. In fact, maybe they were amused by having something to watch. When it was
watching
over,
your baseball game.
I literally believe there were, counting my group, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It was 12 people. It was a lot. 15 people.
Well, I must have been, yeah, because this is the first time I've heard of this, and I've been with you all day. I didn't know you went and saw a movie, so it clearly wasn't that memorable.
Now, the one
Because
that I
if it
want to
was-
go see, because I read a very good review of it, is this new one, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. In order to get myself ready for it, I watched last night Rise of Planet of the Apes, because although there have been something like 11 or 12 Planet of the Apes movies, apparently in about 2011, with Rise of the Planet of the Apes, they kind of revived it and reoriented it into the story of this ape Caesar, who becomes the top ape, right? And or top chimp. He's a chimpanzee, really. And I would say that movie, which I had seen before and liked, I thought was even better than I had remembered. And the interesting thing is, when you realize, let me make sure I'm right about the date, when it was, it has a little bit of a prophetic quality with regard to the pandemic. That's Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I watched that last night with James Franco, and I don't know if now the one I'm on for tonight will be Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, which I began but got too tired to watch. And that Andy Serkis is the guy who plays Caesar in at least 2 of these movies. I wonder if he played it in Rise of the Planet of the Apes, because I don't see his name here, because this is a young Caesar. Caesar is a chimp saved by James Franco, given a medicine that's being worked on to cure Alzheimer's, and it has tremendous impact on him, and it has a tremendous impact immediately on James Franco's father, John Lithgow, who has Alzheimer's. But in the case of of the chimp just continues to get smarter and smarter and smarter, eventually can talk. In the case of the human, after some period of time of being very rational, he goes back to being senile again and gets very, very bad. And then he begins to develop a terrible infection. And apparently this medicine, which is good for apes and chimps, is deadly for humans. And creates a tremendous worldwide infection. And we're sort of in the middle of that now as we get to Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, where ultimately I think what's going to happen is the apes are going to outnumber the humans. And by the time you get to the one that's in the movie theater today, which got a very good reviews, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, this is pretty much an ape world.
Yeah.
And we're going to evaluate for you, is it better or worse?
Yeah.
Given a Biden presidency, is it better or worse, Ted? So we have any questions?
Let's see. Let us know. Comment below. What are your questions? We'll answer them for you. What was Michael Cohen like? Did you know him personally?
I did. I knew Michael Cohen before when he worked with President Trump. Not well, but I knew him. Many people really disliked him. I did not. I was not one of those people who really disliked him. I thought he was disadvantaged a little bit by speaking poorly, because he sounds like very much like a poorly educated street guy of some kind, and he's not. He's a smart guy. I know, because I wasn't in the campaign immediately. By the time I got there, he had sort of been pretty much eliminated from the campaign, because his various different campaign managers, Trump's various different campaign, didn't want to see him on television. They said it made it appear as if we were connected to the mafia. And so I remember a couple of times they're getting very angry that he was on television and trying to get the president to rein him in and get him the hell off, which pretty much worked. He had very little to do, from my perspective, with the campaign. And certainly during the last 6 months when I was with the president on a pretty close to 24-hour basis, I think I saw him twice. Now, here's where it gets interesting. He testified before the House committee on a warning by that complete phony Congressman Thompson that if anybody lies, they're going to be strung up, right? Well, he told numerous lies, but one that struck me immediately when I heard it, because I was representing the president then, is he said he was being questioned, I think, by Congressman Jordan. He may have said that to a few different congressmen, but he wanted to give the impression that he didn't want a job in the White House because he was trying to avoid the attack on his credibility, that he might be doing this because he wasn't given a job in the White House, which he wasn't. He was not given a job in the White House. So he said to Congressman Jordan, I never really wanted and never asked for a job in the White House. And when he said that, I can't tell you what I said, but I can't remember exactly what I said, but I know it's something I shouldn't repeat. And the reason I did immediately, I told you my memory, right? I remember him more than once asking me to go to the president and intercede for him for a job. But even more than that, I remember people coming to me, other people around the president-elect, asking me, could I get this guy off their back? Because he was driving them crazy looking for a job. So immediately, like a good lawyer, I think I had one of my assistants there. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. Okay? Delivers on its promise to do good and never forget the sacrifices America's greatest heroes have made for us. Heroes who risked their lives to keep our communities and our country safe. Heroes like United States Marine Corps Captain and pilot John Jeremy Sachs. Captain Sachs sustained fatal injuries when his military aircraft crashed during training, killing him and 5 other service members. He's remembered by loved ones as courageous, brilliant, and devoted to his career, family, and friends. Sean is survived by his wife, Amber, who gave birth to their second daughter 3 months after his death. Tunnel to Towers paid the mortgage on the family home for Amber and their 2 daughters. The foundation has helped over 1,000 military and first responder families navigate the worst of times by removing the burden of a mortgage payment. Our nation's heroes and their families need your help now more than ever. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. T2T.org. That's T, the number 2T.org. T2T.org. Please donate now. You're live. I want to ask Ted because I'm not familiar with this this part of X. I know we talked about this much earlier, right before we went on, but they have WABC has turned off their replies, meaning on X.
That's right. Well, let's take a look here.
What does that mean?
It appears that they've only turned off replies for certain posts. I'm now looking through.
What does that mean? I don't understand what that means.
It means they were getting a lot of comments. Yeah, people demanding that they bring the mayor back.
Were the comments favorable
Towards you? Yeah, of course.
No, were they favorable to WABC?
No, clearly not.
Well, how do we know?
Because I'm looking at.
They could have just been inundated with so many. We're so glad you got rid of that bum. And because we really enjoy listening to you, John, who is the real star of the station, right?
That's right. What I can do is,
I mean, we don't know.
we do know.
How do we know how do we know they were being bombarded with things that were critical of them?
Okay.
Oh, because they wouldn't have shut it down if it wasn't.
Yeah. What do you mean? I mean,
Okay.
they get all this positive love.
Yeah, you know.
But I also saw. I mean, I was, I'm watching.
Oh, I see. Okay,
I know that
you were monitoring them the way they were monitoring
not even
me.
But I'll tell
You notice that in the letter he says they were monitoring me.
Oh,
Everybody wants to monitor me. The FBI was monitoring me for 3 years.
hey, if the ratings go up.
So what the hell did the FBI get out of monitoring me? They got the ability to write a letter to the grand jury saying there was no probable cause that I committed a crime. So, John, what the hell were you monitoring me for?
Well, they were trying to find a way to deal with it. I could kind of see in real time their social media team. They didn't know how to handle it at first. And so they tried some different strategies. I won't get into it, but I witnessed it, right, by following the social media.
Oh, yeah, don't.
And they finally settled on shutting it down. They just decided, okay,
so how do
we
I
might as well shut it down. No replies.
But this is not there. I don't have theirs. This is somebody who put theirs on mine. I want to see their.
Go to @77 WABC Radio. That's their Twitter handle. Do you want me to bring? I can come over.
I'll get it. I can figure it out. I don't want everybody to know how.
No, you're hey, you know the
Even though I
stuff
am.
better than
I have to do who at who
77 WABC.
at. Wait, you have to always make sure this is at. Okay. 77 WABC, right?
Yep.
And then I just hit that. Okay.
That's right.
How many followers do I have?
You have 1,739,146.
They have 29,000.
Significantly smaller, yes.
Is that true?
Of course.
29,000? They got 29,000 followers?
Yeah. And you're at 1.7 million. So as we continue here, this has kind of it's turned into a very busy Monday and a lot going on. We want to remind folks to support our sponsors. By supporting our sponsors, you're supporting everything the mayor is doing here on America's Mayor Live.
100,000 followers.
Yes.
Who runs this? Does
They got a team over there that does it. And
is this what Chad Lopez is in charge of?
I can't, I don't believe so. Of course, Chad is the CEO of
I guess he's in charge of everything.
Red
right?
Apple Media. He's in charge of that whole floor. He's the CEO. He's the CEO of the radio of WABC, right?
I see.
Now, WABC, of course, falls under Red Apple Media. So, again,
I'm
thank you
looking
for
at the
joining us.
numbers here.
Comment below. Let us know where you're tuning in from. So, of course, as we take this show completely online now,
His statement
comment below.
got 1,800 followers. The statement that we responded to, which is a lie, got 1,800 followers. But Ted, it's weird. It comes up like a blank. It comes up like a blank on their thing. And then you got to hit something to get it. Why do they do that?
That's a good question. What
Where?
comes up?
Here. That's his statement right there.
Oh, you got the statement up. Yeah, exactly. That's the statement.
That's the statement.
Yeah. Well, you can't see it,
But
but
then you do. Well, why do they do that?
you got
They're
to
trying to hide it. Well,
Well, they-
first of all, it is pretty hidden. They got 1,800.
Oh, they just posted that at the top. That's new. They
Yeah, this
posted
is
a story.
new.
They posted a story about the feud. That's interesting.
And they have
Get to it,
no, it's from the New York Post.
but it's posted by WABC's Twitter account.
Oh, it's probably favorable to them because they pay off the Post. They have the public relations
Or they're-
guy who, I don't mean pay him off with
Yeah.
money, but with stories.
Yeah, or they're choosing
You
to.
can manipulate the Post very, very easily.
they're
and-
trying to fight back. Is what they're doing.
Well, it's not doing them too much good. They only have 253 people that have looked at it.
Yeah, it's not.
And it's been up an hour already.
Look, yeah, it's look. They're not. Look,
It says future at station uncertain. My future at the station isn't uncertain.
You heard it here, folks. But if you're
Well,
reading that, you're behind by a few
Well,
hours.
they
Okay, so
he,
you're
re-
close.
he really didn't have quite the guts to fire me, so I kept. I mean, at some point, if
He ne-
lawyers think it's right, I'll put out the whole damn text thing. But at one point, he told me, "What was it? I'm too afraid. Everyone here is so afraid." Can you find that one, Ted? The exact quote. I don't want to misquote him like he does with me.
Yeah, let's see if we can find that. So again, as we're
Say here, I was fired.
so that is where we're at with
And
that.
he said, "Oh, he said I made a demand for 2 hours. I didn't make a demand for. I've been first of all, I've been.
We need to clear
I
that
have
up.
been asking, and I have been led to believe by him and Chad Lopez that first it was going to be 3 hours, then 2 hours, and we had a contract, and then I went off to with the president. Then it was going to be 2 hours again, and I did write him a text saying that financial situation being what it is, I really could use the extra hour. I did it as a friend, and I asked maybe he might want to do it for my birthday. It's only been on the table for 4 years. And the next thing I get back is that letter telling me I'm violating a policy I don't know exists. So I don't know what happened. And again, the only reason to spend any time on it at all is for those of you who watch WABC, please be warned that according to the letter, not all of the dissembling, according to the letter, which I will keep and I'll repeat every day if I need to, the policy of WABC is to prohibit any of their people, they describe it as agents, from discussing the 2020 election. Not just a little this part of it or that part of it. It says the election. And it also says, and when it gives out 3 examples, minor examples, it says, but not limited to those examples. It goes out of its way to be as broad as possible. And in my case, it also prohibits me from discussing the $145,000 verdict against me on the interpretation of actually Hunter Biden's partner, who represented these women and had about 20 lawyers working on the case, even though there's no question this is being paid for by the Destroy Trump and Trump Lawyers Committee. John seems to have no sympathy or empathy for that at all, because he's doing a good job of continuing that destruction. And he is, no matter how you look at it, he's standing on the side of you cannot speak or say anything about these subjects. And I'm standing on the side of I want to talk about them. So which is a more American position? There's no doubt about it. I mean, even if what I'm going to say isn't correct, that's what discussion's all about. You get to correct it. You get to look. I mean, when I tell you this is in the letter, I don't just tell you, I show you. I've always done that. I've always done that because I'm a lawyer. I also have always done it because I'm honest. Every time I've been challenged, it comes out that I'm honest. The two major ones being that I was a Russian pawn, totally untrue. It's defamed by Biden. I'm suing him for that. Not being handled the way a suit against Trump would be handled, put to the top of the docket, torture him, impose a gag order, make it impossible for him to run for president. When is this judge just going to be removed for being a scoundrel and an example of the crooked judiciary that we have in New York? I don't know, but it better be soon. Our call-in, we have a call-in number here. Now, this we definitely have to improve, Ted.
Yeah. Do we want to talk to?
It's 646-573-5177. 646-573-5177. Write that down and call us. And as we move along, hopefully as soon as we can, we're going to come up with a smoother, easier way to call in, because I had some really wonderful people that called me, Julie, and my goodness, I'm going to miss them a lot. And of course, Jimmy.
Yeah, but a lot of them are going to be with us here on America's Mayor Live. Joel tried calling not too long ago.
Joel from Jerusalem, who I hadn't heard from in a while, actually.
He did
even on ABC. I hadn't heard from Joel for a while. I hope he's okay.
That's right. So
Joel, if you're listening or you're within earshot, you can get me now on 646-573-5177. Even if it takes a little, I mean, it shouldn't really. You're really just calling a cell phone that Ted has in his hands right now.
Yeah.
But
we'll start.
Obviously, there's a much better technological way to handle this, which we will. But at least we can take calls, and very shortly we will. And we really ask you very, very much to support us as a way of building up our army, so that this can't be done to other people. I mean, there are people there at ABC who I'm sure would like to report on the horrible things that happened in the 2020 election, even if they don't believe that it was outcome determinative. There are now acts of fraud that have been established beyond any doubt that need to be reported so they're not repeated. All of those are barred by this act of censorship, which gives me a sense it favors Biden so much and it hurts Trump so much that there's more to it than I realize. And I must say that when I saw the letter, I realized immediately there's much more to it, including the whole situation with the private conversations between Castamatidis and the head of Poulos, the head of Dominion. I mean, I just took John said to me that would I agree, at least agree when I crossed out the other parts. Would I at least agree to Dominion? I said yes. He said he was going to talk to Poulos, and he told me it was through this particular priest that is in the newspaper story. Well, let's see what else we have that we should cover that they should know about, because who knows what else is being censored, not just by ABC, but by others, because everybody's involved in censoring. RFK Jr. looks like he is going to, well, he says he's going to be in the debates. The debates, well, I think I remembered it correctly, because I negotiated the last 2 times for Trump on this. In fact, Ben and I were talking about it on Friday. We had a lot of fun with this. You have to have 15% nationally, sort of as an average in the polls, and you have to be on the ballot in I think it's every state. So he does have right now he's got, not in every poll, but in 2 polls he's at 16%. Some others he's not. So assuming he can hold that between now and I think the first one is scheduled for September, then he'd meet that criteria. Now, if I am correct, and it requires being on the ballot in every state, well, that's going to be a chore for him to get that done. He's probably on the ballot in about 1/3 of the states right now. Okay, it is a little bit easier than I thought. He has to be on the ballot in enough states to have a mathematical chance of winning a majority vote in the Electoral College. So he has to be on the ballot in enough states that would give you 270 electoral votes. So what's that? That's a little over half the state, depending. And since he's a Democrat, really, right? He's going to have access, he's going to have an easier chance of getting on the ballot in the big electoral vote states. He should be able to do that. He should be able to get on enough state ballots where he'd become mathematically possible. Now, mathematically possible would mean you have to win every state, but that's all you need. Plus, you need the 15%. So I would say there's a better than even chance he's going to be on. And the Trump people seem to be unconcerned, and the Biden people are going crazy. A top Democratic insider said his team was scared. I have seen his staff hold him back in ways that holds back the party and forces unpleasant questions to be asked about the White House and its leader. The insider said, the Democratic insider. Well, I mean, come on. We're going to kid with each other. The guy is demented. I mean, I don't know how he's going to debate. He does pull through mezza, as they say in Italian, right? When they give him all that pumped up drugs they give him. But remember, 696-573-5177. Not a great number to remember, but if you write it down, you can remember it. 696-573-5177. And I'd really love to have you guys call in, and we can, particularly in the afternoon. So I'll be on again tomorrow at 3:00 on all of these networks that we're on right now. Which shall we review them, Ted? X, which you're on, which is probably the main one where we get the largest number of viewers, but we get decent numbers of viewers on all of them, on YouTube, on Getter, on
Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter,
X, and we're also
Twitter,
and now we're also on the Bannon
RAV, QUX,
and we're on RAV. Aren't we on Bannon's?
Yes, in his network.
On his
network. A whole nother So we're
And we're working on others. I mean,
we're working on others.
Hopefully by next week, we'll have a couple more so that we have, the only thing with it is this is an unwieldy, it's one thing, you just hit a little button and there's another thing you have to do and it makes somewhat of a difference. But I mean, we went over 500,000 just on Twitter the other night. So we're not suffering for audience. We're doing pretty good.
I mean, we did 4 hours of live content today. Or sorry, video content. 3 hours of live.
We actually did an interview with a very, very interesting man that we'll put out within the next day or two, who's a Chinese, but now expatriate Chinese artist who specializes in Christian art. And I have to tell you, one of his paintings of the Blessed Mother, of really the Madonna with Child, is so beautiful. I mean, she's a very, very young Asian girl depicted as Mary. It's really quite beautiful. And then another picture of a Chinese saint, a priest who was martyred by the communists. And we go into, a discussion of Chinese art. We go into a discussion of communism. And I guess something that you should know, that when you hear cultural revolution, you hear about the cultural revolution, that's an integral part of Marxism. What that is trying to wipe out your culture, take your identity away as Chinese, as Russian, as Italian, as German, as American. And you should know that one of the major objectives of George Soros and all of his money is to destroy American nationalism, because nationalism is equated with fascism, which is, of course, ridiculous. I mean, nationalism, nothing wrong with nationalism, like anything else. Only time nationalism becomes bad is if you make it bad, if you make it excessive, and you build off it policies like Biden does, fascist policies like trying your opponent's friends and supporters like me, working with the Chinese communists to give up air bases. That's when it becomes bad. So let's see what happens. And it really is important to make a mark against censorship. Whether this is censorship in the way that we would describe it in the Constitution, so that you could bring a lawsuit for civil rights action. It would be if there's any evidence this was done in any way in concert with Biden, then it would be straight out and out a civil rights violation and a violation of free speech, technically. But is it a violation of the value of free speech? Of course it is. Values that should be held to the highest degree by people who own and have the benefit of being very wealthy and own publications. They should have, if our country is going to work right, they should have almost an exaggerated form of free speech, and being willing to allow people they disagree with to express their viewpoint and then refuting it. And not the attitude of, you are prohibited from discussing the 2020 election. So this is an important point to win and to straighten out, because this is something America has always prided itself on, its freedom of speech. And much like our freedom of religion, it's getting trashed badly. And this is a big trashing of it. Steve Buscemi was hit and beaten up in the city. There were a big editorial by the New York Post about how many young people were beaten in the last week. And it seems to be rising. And I think our mayor has finally come back from his trips to Miami and to Rome. Don't know where he's going next. Probably the nightly nightclub. But maybe he should settle down and do some work. He gets paid for it. It's really terrible what's going on. And of course, the influx of illegal aliens who are not vetted now continues because some of them now are being brought in this, I think it's the CBP program, in which he basically escorts them in, flies them right into the United States without any real checking as to whether they just came out of the local insane asylum. You have no idea if the guy sitting next to you who just came in and they want to move him in, next to your kid's school, whether this guy, what has he been in prison? How often? Does he like chopping people's heads off? This isn't scare tactics. This is the reality of when you don't vet, you don't know. When you don't vet, the criminal element takes advantage because they're not stupid like Biden. They see the door open and they say, well, we don't know how long it's going to remain open. Sure as hell not going to remain open if Trump becomes president. So they're going to get as many people in here as possible when the going is easy. So I don't know. We got 5 more months of that to go through. There's a lot more damage going to be done. We are going to say our prayer now for the people of Israel, the people of the United States. Pretty soon we're going to have coming up for you our interview with Yan, who is a very fine expatriate Chinese artist. And we'll be back tomorrow at 3 for the Rudy Giuliani show. And then we'll be back tomorrow night with America's Mayor Live. And please get used to calling 696-573-5177. At least get used to it for a couple of days until we come up with a much better way to do it, because we're really anxious to get your viewpoint as well. It always was enormously helpful to me. And
taking more calls, right?
Oh, I want to take a lot of calls.
And is there a way to maybe we can work with our callers, because we want to get a lot of them in sometimes, right? But sometimes these calls, they got such good things to say. And the mayor, you've always been good at kind of naturally moving on to the next one, and that can be tough to do when you have such a good conversation going. And the good news is with this, unlike radio over the air, you don't have the same time constraints.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And what you've been dealing with, right, doing both for the last year and a half.
We can go over. Okay. Well, this has been very, very interesting. Very interesting day, a new way of doing things. And hopefully, as we move along, we're going to improve it even more so that it, like we have from the time that we started, we went from nothing to a vast army of freedom-loving Americans. And we want the people here who realize the tremendous danger this country is in, and realize we got to stick together if we are going to bring this country back to a country that respects both the letter and the spirit of the First Amendment, which means freedom of religion and freedom of speech, and stops trying to intimidate people or entice people through money to not say what needs to be said and told to the American people. America will be destroyed if that is allowed to continue. And you don't want to sit by and watch that. I certainly don't. I will fight with everything I have to make sure that that doesn't happen. So thank you again, and God bless America.
I wouldn't mind cleaning some of the stuff. I guess now's the time to focus on the show. Yeah. That's what yeah. Oh, that's a good one. You have at least 2 really good ones up that you got. You don't want to are we prepared to put this on live? Yeah. Oh, that we don't know.
La 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 larga fatotum della città largo la 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 questa bottega che l'albeggia presto la 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 ah che bel vivere che bel piacere che bel piacere per un barbiere di qualità ah bravo Figaro bravo bravissimo bravo la 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 fortunatissimo per verità bravo la 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 fortunatissimo per verità fortunatissimo per verità la 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 pronto a far tutto la notte e il giorno, sempre d'intorno, in giro sta, miglior cuccagna per un barbiere, vita più nobile non si dà. La 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 la. Raso e pettini, lancete forbici al mio comando, tutto qui sta. Lancete forbici, raso e pettini al mio comando, tutto qui sta. Vera risorsa, poi del mestiere. Con la donnetta, col cavaliere, con la donnetta, la 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 lera, col cavaliere, la 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 la, la la. Ah, che bel vivere, che bel piacere, che bel piacere. Per un barbiere di qualità, di qualità. Tutti mi chiedono, tutti mi vogliono, donne e ragazzi, vecchie fanciulle, con la parrucca, presso la barba, con la sanguigna, nel serviglietto, tutti mi chiedono, tutti mi vogliono, tutti mi chiedono, tutti mi vogliono, con la parrucca, presso la barba, presso il serviglietto, ehi, Figaro, 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 ahimè, ahimè, che furia, ahimè, che folla, uno alla volta, per carità, per carità, per carità, uno alla volta, uno alla volta, uno alla volta, per carità. Figaro, son qua, ehi, Figaro, son qua, Figaro qua, Figaro là, Figaro qua, Figaro là, Figaro su, Figaro giù, Figaro su, Figaro giù. Molto pochissimo so come il fulmine, con il fantasma della città, della città, della città, della città, della città. Bravo Figaro, bravo, bravissimo. La 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 la.
bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are able to apply our God-given common sense. So let's do it.